Alright, so that's recording. Here's what we have from yesterday. We can log in and log out, and on our create listing page we can create listings, which is fantastic, and we also finally came up with a way to show all listings that belong to only the person that's logged in. Alright, so we're going to actually format these, and these each all have to be forms. Every single one of these has to be a form. Just by taking a look at this page you can see that. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to turn every one of them into a form. But we can also load these into new components. So I believe what we did yesterday is we came up with a way to have this update listing component, right? So that's what we're going to work with, is this. We're going to go ahead and kind of lay out in this component how we want these to be formatted. So they're all going to have forms. They're all, what I plan to do is to kind of have an input for each one of those. We're going to pass it along in that for loop like you've seen before. And we'll talk about how that works again in a sec if it's confusing. So we'll kind of have this component, and via that for loop right here, we're going to be doing this and loading each one of those update components here. All right, within that, we're going to pass along each listing as an input as it's loading it. And then we're going to kind of have inside of that component just a form. So you'll see how that works. So the plan is to kind of ditch this. What I'm going to do right away to get started on this is just load up for every listing we have. We're going to load up a update listing component, because that's what we want to kind of reflect here. So it's going to have all the stuff about the listing already filled in, and you can update it and change stuff. So that's what we're going to emulate right here. So to do that, I'm going to just go ahead and load for every one of these an update listing component. So what's the selector for that? It's app update listing. So we're going to load in one of these. Right? We're going to create these components in a second. We already have them created. There's just nothing in them. So we'll load these things. In fact, this is kind of a waste. Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just chuck that over there and get rid of that div? We don't need this div anymore. So now we just have this chunky looking for loop. Alright, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to pass to each one of these, as we're looping it, an input. So each listing as we do this. So I think my plan is to do this. Probably going to call it listing. So this is the variable name that exists on this component as the input. Then we can set this value to be the actual listing right here. Alright, so that's what we're doing here. So we're passing along each listing in the loop, which will be just really convenient. This is a huge one-liner, which is really nice, right? So all that code, that one loop, does actually a lot of stuff. Alright, so what we're going to do now, just to verify, is just refresh and see what that does. That should be breaking. That's good. It should be breaking because we don't have an input in this component here, so we're going to create it right now. App update listing, that is this component here. So what we're going to do is mess with it, and we're going to give it an input. Right, so we need to pass that here, or specify it right here. We just say at input, and we call it listing. So that's all we need to do there. It's just define what it is, so it can pick up on it. All right, so let's fix some of this, and I'm going to import input. All right, so there's this. My goodness, fingers. All right, so there's that. We can now have this input exist on the HTML for this component. So we can actually kind of start messing with the styling of this if we so choose. So now we have all the information about each listing in this component, which is great. So now I'm going to close out this page that's doing the loop, and we're going to work with what these will look like. So they should look like this, and each have a form inside of them, right, and just display all the stuff about them. So I just want to refresh to make sure. We're going to kind of take this one a little slower and check for errors as we go instead of just doing everything at once. Alright, so it is working. It's loading each component. So you can see for every listing we have, it's loading one of these, update listings. Alright, now we're going to format it. Alright, so we're going to go back to the HTML for this update listing and just get rid of everything and put a form in here. So in this case, let's just say when you submit this, we'll probably call this function update. Alright, and then that should be all we need. And then we're going to just pass in these inputs. I forget what we have. There's like 5. There is title, description, price, location. And from what I can tell, it doesn't look like you're allowed to change the image. It doesn't look like there's a way to do that. So let's just not have it on there. We'll show the image, but we just won't let you change it. Alright, so we're going to make this text. This can be name equals, we already have this, by the way. Yeah, exactly. So note that we passed along this listing to this component we're working with, right? So we already have this object defined. We don't have to make a new empty object. We just want to pass in the stuff that's already there, right? So now this is just going to be listing, I think we called it IMG. Yeah, let's make that image. That's fine. No, I lied. Let's make this an image tag and set its source to listing.image. I don't know why I did all that, sorry. So this should show the picture, and let's just make it have a width and height so we can kind of see what it looks like. So that's all I'm going to put on here for a second, just to see what it does. All right, so let's see if we have pictures now. Some of these might have pictures, some might not. As you can see, those are all blank. Yeah, I think we had like random text for sure. All right, so
you could put alt.
Oh yeah, alt. That's right. Yeah, we could have alt listing image. All right, so there's that. That'll eventually show the images for each one.
Listings image on the tag, so I do not the text that will show inside the alt.
Do what? Listing.image, like to show the actual URL. Yes, like listing.image. Sure.
Seeing if it actually.
Seeing if they do have them. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, so these are not valid. None of them have actual pictures. So we'll fix that in a sec. All right. So we can have eventually a picture of all those. And let's just fix these inputs, or make inputs for all these. So we have title. We'll just make this one title and do our banana box thing. So this. Engine model. Yep. All right, so there's that. I usually like to just make one of these and then just copy and paste it a bunch of times because it's way easier than typing it all. So we'll call this one title. And this is just going to be binding to literally the object we've been passing along the whole time. So it should just be auto filled in when we try to do this. So second was probably description. There's description and then price, I think. All right, so and then what? Location, I think. And lastly, what's title, description, price, location. That's all you get. Okay, so there's that, and we're also showing your picture. So let's see what it does, because all of this stuff should be filled out. Some of them might have blank prices, or some other attributes. So let's find out if this is gonna work. So as you can see, there is a form for every single one of these. It looks atrocious, so we'll make it look a little better and have a way to update and delete these as well. So the update, all that's gonna be is just our input, our submit button. We'll just call this value equals update, right? So that's just going to call the update method on the thing you're updating. And why don't we just put like a line break in here because can't really tell what's going on. All right, so let's refresh. It didn't do it, did it? Yeah, but our buttons are showing up, so that's good. All right, so all this stuff's already filled in, right? And we can update and change this data, right? So we're gonna have to figure out a way to do that. I think we already made in our service, our listing service, a way to, update stuff. Actually, I meant to do a horizontal row. Is what I meant to put there. There we go. Now it should split these up. Something like that, right? So, huh?
So pretty.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty ugly, but it's fine. It'll do what we want. All right, so we got a way to update stuff. So let's work with the TS file for this. So let's make that update function over here, right? So let's do this. We already know this is what's being updated, right? That listing. So we're going to need a way to have our service in here, our listing service. So let's go ahead and dependency inject it. So we have like listing service here, and then import it. Import listing service from some place. Where is it? It is / listing.service. I believe somewhere in there. We were here. Listing.service. That should work. All right, so we have this imported. That's great. We don't really need anything in this constructor except for that. So now when we actually click update, when someone presses this, runs this function, we're going to say on our listing service. I don't know why stuff's not auto-completing, but I think we have an update function. Let's just double check. Listing service update. We do. And we're taking the entire listing, which is great in our case, because we could just shove the whole thing in this. So we'll shove the whole thing in there and then have a callback to say, what do we want to do when we get the new updated changes? Well, we don't really have to do anything because we're already going to see the changes made. But I think we'll do that anyways. So what are we updating? We are updating this.listing, right? And then it's going to rip out whatever the listing's ID is in the service and just kind of go there on the back end, right? In our callback, we could just say like this. This is actually going to be really easy. Whatever this data is, we want to set the new changes you've made to this listing. All right, so we can say this.listing is equal to that data, right? So this is the new changes after Mongoose was like, cool, you're legit, right? So this is going to be updated right away on our front end, which is super important. All right, so now our update should work. And we might as well throw in a destroy method in here because they want us to be able to do that. And if you're on this page, you can only get to this page if you're logged in, and you can only delete your own things, right? Well, we already have all of Cameron's own things, right? Because over here in that component, it's not this component. It was in our like user listings component where we said, no, it wasn't either. New listing, sorry.
We shouldn't be able to get to our update component if it's not ours in.
Correct, exactly. That's all I was getting at. Yeah, so now we can just have a way to destroy these. But before we kind of add this delete in here, let's go ahead and make sure this update does indeed work. All right, so I think, let me save if I didn't save, and we'll check this. But let's also log and see what's happening here. Let's just log our data, just so we can see if this is doing what it should. All right, so I'm going to refresh, and we'll pick one and update it and give something an actual image. So let's look up a picture of like a unicycle. Alright, so we'll just, well, we can't update the image. I lied.
Well, we create a new one.
We can create a new one. Yeah. We'll do that in a sec then. So let's just pick a random one of these. Let's make this something that's actually a real thing. Let's pick like a laptop. Description. It's got a...
It's still one with like...
Yeah. Price, let's go with like $1,500. It's in Virginia. Alright, so let's see if this thing we can actually rename. So we'll hit update, and it looks like something happened that's great. So here's what we got back from our database, right? It gave us a new price. That's our new price. It kept the ID, right? This should have been the only thing that stayed. Title, description, location, right? So this image is jargon forever because we're not allowed to update it. If we want to add that functionality in, I mean, I think it's a good idea. It'll take one line of code to change it. I want to be able to change the images, because it seems kind of nice to be able to do. That was in our, God, I already forgot which component. There's so many. Update listing. Yeah, all right, so close this, HTML. We're not gonna just make this fixed. We'll turn it into an input. So get rid of this. Actually, we can leave this. This will be cool. We'll leave that, but also make this an input so we can see the new change that we make right away. That'll be kind of legit if that works. Alright, so we'll just say image, we'll let you change this. It's going to be text, that's fine, and we'll set this to just .img. Alright, so now we should be able to see this. If it updates successfully, we'll be able to see this change right away. Now we can change the image. If we refresh.
Since it's the way, not the way like the
Yeah.
will it show the image as soon as you
Yeah.
put your text in thing?
Oh,
Like,
I see what you're saying.
you know, if you put your URL in your image thing, is it actually going to display it in the object?
It should do it right away. Yeah, it should. So let's pick a random picture here on Google, copy image address, and we're going to update and find out. It should do it right away as soon as we hit update, but it's not going to do it if I just paste it into the field.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Oh, God, it did. That's
Wow.
awesome. Never mind.
That's what I was going to do, the double
Holy
line with
cow.
that.
That was amazing. You're right. All right, so we're going to click update, and hopefully it'll change that. It was solid. It worked. All right, so all right, so let's hit refresh and hope it
Small
stays.
things,
Wow.
There you go. Pretty legit, right? All right, we could do the same thing with like unicycle. Let's update this unicycle. Unicycle. Here's our unicycle. Let's pick bananas. Yeah, let's pick this banana cycle. I like it. Actually, orange looks nice. All right, so we're gonna actually give this an image. Bam, there it goes. Update this thing. Let's give it a location. It's in circus. It's in a circus, and the description is it's a one-wheeled monster. All right, so let's hit refresh, and there you go. It works. Sweet. We're good. So stuff updates, and it's legit. Each thing is independent, right? So we have this whole thing that's kind of looping all of these components that we just created. Every one has its own form, and it works. That's the most important part. All right, so we're literally done with this aside from delete, right? So this page down here. We're almost done with the whole page, guys. This is good. All right, delete. How do we delete stuff? Well, let's go ahead and see if we can make this work live, just like the images. All right, so the key part to doing that is making sure, oh God, we're gonna need an output, aren't we? Yes. We're gonna need an output, so we'll figure that out. So when we destroy something, let's also make this on the HTML. For simplicity's sake, let's just nest a form. Just shove another form in a form, because why not? All right, what we're going to do, say when you submit this one's going to be called delete. All right, just to kind of emulate what they have going on the page. All right, so this will be just like a nested form. Honestly, you could probably just go right here, and you can't tell the difference. It might break, but I don't know. So you could probably leave it there, but let's try to nest it. All right, so we'll make this an input of submit, and then that's it. Give it a value of delete. So that's all that is. That's all that form's going to do. And then when you click it, we're going to go over here and say this.listing service. We probably called it destroy, I want to say, and we're probably deleting it by the entire listing and getting a callback. So if you remember, way in our backend, when we made our delete method, remember we had two nested queries? We had one that was for find one first before we delete it, and then you delete it. Well, we're going to get back the entire object that we just deleted on our front end. So the cool part about that is now we can take this data. This is the thing we just deleted. Honestly, it's the exact identical data to this. These are literally going to be identical, but now we're going to have to figure out how to take this and send it up to our parent and say, hey, go delete this thing. Go delete this from your array. Because we're in like our own component. We need to go up a level. Say, go delete this somehow. So we might do what we did the other day. Instead of using an output, and we might be able to use an output, like legitimately, so we'll hold off on it for a second. Let's just make sure this works. Console log, we deleted, and then colon this data. Let's just see if it works. Alright, so let's refresh. No, it does not. Failed to execute set attribute on element submit is not a valid attribute name. I didn't call it an attribute name. Yes, I did. That's wrong. There we go. That should have fixed it. Typos. Alright, so let's see if we can delete this. I don't want to delete the unicycle. Let's delete this. Oh god, what happened?
Just refresh the page.
Yeah, it did refresh the page. So a key indicator when that happens, I'll tell you this now, usually it's because you don't have this method. We don't have a delete method. We actually have a destroy method. So it's looking for delete over here, which doesn't exist. So you can either rename this here, or you can rename it here. Doesn't matter. We're going to actually want it to be called destroy. So I'll replace that, and that'll work. Alright, so let's try to delete one of these guys. So it's not going to look like it removes here, right? It's gone in Mongo. If I refresh, this listing will be gone. But we need to be able to obviously get rid of that from what we're seeing. So that's why we have this whole object here to do that. Right? That's why we have this. So now we have to tell it to send what this JSON data you're seeing right here to our parent and be like, go remove that so we don't see it right here. Right? So that's what we're going to need to do somehow. We could try that, but I want to actually try to see if we can use an output legitimately. Right? So what we can try to do, and I think it'll work in this case, because we're inside update listing, but if you remember in our new listings, that's where we're holding all of our listings, all of the users' listings, right? So what we can do is say, we can create a function in here, in this one that's going to run when somebody deletes a child listing, right? And what we're gonna get inside of that is the listing you deleted. All right, so here's how this works if you don't know how outputs work. So inside of the component that we're deleting, right, we're going to say we deleted data. What we're going to do is we're going to create an emitter. All right, so this is going to be output, and then we're going to call this just like emitter, for example. This is going to be equal to any new event emitter. All right, so it looks like this. You need to import both. So I'm going to do this up here, output, event emitter. We have both of those now. That's great. So with an emitter, you can call this function called emit, which says go send data outward. All right, so what we're going to do is when you click destroy, that's when we want to emit. So we're going to say, once this happens, call, what did I call it? Emitter. So we call it emitter. That's the variable name, and we have this function available to us called emit. You can pass it data. We're going to pass it the listing that was deleted right here. Now, in our parent component, it can look for this emitter's event, this emit, and it's going to look for this data here. So the way this works now is we've got this going on. That's cool, and we're done with this. So that's all you need in this component. However, here's where we need it to change, right? We need this to delete from, let me close this. We need it to delete from this array here, right? So in order to gain access to that thing we just deleted via that emitter, we have to go to this HTML over here. Oh, this is going to be really ugly. All right, so here's how it's going to work. All right, the name of our emitter is called emitter, right? And that emitter exists within each app update listing, right? So what we're going to do is say go look for that and listen for that emit function, right? So the name of it is emitter. We called it that. We call that variable that. And when this happens, here's what we can do. We can say call a function that exists here, not in the child. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say look for this event, and because we're in new listing, right, new listing component, not inside of app update listing, we can call a function that exists right here where we are. So what if we call this on delete, for example, and then what you pass in here is $event. So this is the listing that we deleted, this $event thing. It's kind of magical. So now it's going to look for this onDelete function, not inside of this component, not inside of the listing you deleted, but inside of the one we're in right now. All right, so here's how this works. Now we need to go create this function that's coming, that's our emitter saying go call this in the parent, right? So now let's go create it. So in our new listing component, we need to create that way over here. We called it onDelete, so we're saying run this code that's coming from a child. This is not going to be $event. This can be whatever we want. Let's call it like listing, right? So this is the thing someone deleted. We now have access to it in our parent, right? So now in this, you can see we have these listings, right? So you're going to see how this works. We're going to take this listing and delete it from our array of listings, right? So that's the whole point, is to get rid of it so we don't see it, right? It's gone on our back end. Now we're trying to get rid of it on the front end, right? So this is the thing someone deleted. All right, so now we have to figure out, does that exist in our listings array? If it does, remove it. All right, so
why do we put this method in our new listing component versus another one?
it has to be in here because that's the component that's containing all of our listings, right? Because if you take a look at this code, this is where we're creating each listing in the for loop, right?
Because that's the one that's going to be sending and listening for if something has changed.
Right, and every single one of these app update listings has an emitter. Every single one, because we put that emitter in there, right? But they all have that, and if that, it's going to listen for it for every single one you click on. So it's going to be like, okay, you picked like, the unicycle, you clicked that. Well, you told us to emit. You have this emitter, and when you say the word emit, you call that function. It looks for a function that exists in the parent, right? So we're in the parent right now. This whole thing, not the child right here. Right, so now we're calling this onDelete function that's inside of our component, our new listing component that contains all of the listings. Right, so we're calling onDelete, and this has all of our listings. This is the new listing component. So this component's HTML, this whole thing. right? So now we can finally delete it from that and make it go away. So I think what we can do is probably a loop. Yeah, I think what we can do is this. Let I equals 0. I is less than this dot listings. We're going to loop through the listings and just compare IDs. If we find that ID, remove it and just splice it out of the array. I believe. There might be better ways, but this is what I'm thinking for now. So loop through everything we already have and say if we have this listing already. So if the thing you deleted, the listing, right, equals, if that ID is ever equal to one of these listings IDs. If this ever happens, then we know we found the one that should be removed from our listings array, right? So that's great. Now we need to remove it from the array. So how are we going to do that? Can we just make it null?
If it's an
Can
array,
you just use like splice?
if it's an array, we can splice it. Yeah.
Can you? Yeah, if we use splice here, that should work.
That's what I did, but the issue is I didn't have a way of passing the position.
I see. Yeah.
But you could probably do that. This is already informed if you just say splice.
Yeah. The thing is, we have the ID. Okay, that's a good point. But we have to find it by its ID first. Once we find it by its ID, we can find it by its index. So here's what we can do. Let's do this. We're going to still keep that for loop, and then we can do a splice by its index. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. Let's just say let index here.
Giving us our data, because the backend's already sending us that listing object back, right?
Correct.
So do we need to find that ID? It's already giving it.
Well, we have the ID, but inside of this array, they each have their own also index. Right, so what I'm saying is we need to still look through these listings, find the one that we deleted, because we know it's in there somewhere, but we want to find its index. That's all we care about. Once we find its index, what I'm going to do is this. Then we can say, now we can splice this dot listings dot splice. Now we have the index of the one that we wanted that was deleted, right? So now you can just do that. Does that make sense? Sorry? I don't remember how splice works. Is there like a...
It's just one. It's just by one. But I don't think
It'll
it.
default. If you don't
Yeah.
give it an end, I think it defaults.
To one.
So yeah.
Well, we
Yeah,
can-
so
we
if
can
you're
test it
removing
out.
multiple values, that's the default.
Why don't we do this too? What if we fail to... Let's just have an if here to say if we have an index, right? Because this should be null until this runs. And if it's null at the end, then something terrible happened and we don't know how to delete it. So we're going to just do an if. So we'll set all of those listings equal to the spliced version of that after we found it. That might work. So let's try it. Alright, so let's actually just log something too. Calling delete in parent. And then comma data. Alright, so let's see if this output even does anything. Let's try to delete the laptop. Alright, so let's hope for the best here. Delete. Didn't get rid of it, so why is that? Okay.
You reload the page.
If we reload, it's going to be gone for sure.
Yeah.
But we want it to delete without us having to refresh.
Okay, so,
Right, that's the whole point.
yeah, but then you
That's a
get-
terrible idea. Don't do that. You don't want to requery your entire database. That's bad. You don't want to have to get all of those things. You could. That's a solution. But it's just going to make it so you have to hit your database another time.
It's supposed to help you avoid this.
Yeah, the whole point is to not have to do that, so you can just get rid of one thing and not query for everything again from the database. All right, so we can fix this. We just need to figure out what's going on. Let's see if we even found this index. How about this? We found the item to delete or something, comma ID or index. So is it finding it? If it finds it, it should delete it. That's what I'm confused about. So we'll delete, for example, this thing right here. All right, so it found 5.
Or you-
No,
Oh.
find it's on there before you ever
Wait,
delete it.
Oh,
you
was-
see the bike run away?
Oh, the bike
You
got
have the
deleted.
exact same issue. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. where it's ticking it off the top, but it's not taking it.
Okay, so it's like doing stuff
Yeah,
now, but
if you reload the page, the proper ones are gone.
yeah. All right. Well, that's bizarre.
Yeah, see?
So it's just I don't think Splice is doing what we want. Another way to do it is make a blank array, look through everything, and say if this doesn't match, keep pushing stuff into it. That's another way to do it. That's probably way easier.
Can you do it by just one? Because well, technically you're in that one position. You just want to
Yeah.
take that one off by one index.
Yeah. Well, here's another way to do it. Just do this, and then loop everything. I is less than this dot listings dot length. So loop through all of them, and then do the same if we had. So if the listings dot underscore ID is equal to data ID. So if we find that match, if it's, yeah, so let's do the opposite of that. So if it's not equal to the one we want, then we're going to push it into this new array. So it's array.push this entire listing, this dot listings at I. Alright, so that makes way more sense, I think. It's a lot easier, and it'll definitely work. Then we could say, set all of these listings to that array.
What if we don't, for some magical reason, find it? So else.
Well, then it'll be a blank array, so that's... Worst case, it'll be a blank array.
Okay.
But it should never happen. That should never happen, though. Usually. Alright, so let's hope that this works. It should delete the right things and just update correctly now. Alright, so if I click delete here, just don't know what happened there. Oh god, see, it is a blank array. No! Alright,
Jose, why'd you have to bring up blank arrays?
I was messing with that
Dang.
last night. That's why I'm.
yeah, see, so it like deletes everything. Okay, so that's probably not a good way to do it. Yeah, you don't want stuff
I couldn't
disappearing.
Figure it out. Like I was trying to do the index on the splice, and it was I just couldn't get the right index.
Oh.
Okay, why is that? Can you pop at an index?
No, you switch it with the last one and then pop the last one.
Good idea. Let's do that.
It's a workaround.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Let's just do that. If we find a match, then just swap it and then pop it. Swap and pop. That's what we're doing. Alright, so let temp equal this dot listings I. Keep this, and then we'll set this dot listings I to the last. I equals... What do we want to set it to? Yeah.
Oh.
Length minus 1. Yeah. So we'll set that to the last, then we'll set the last to...
Or actually just pop the last one now.
Yeah.
And then just set it. This dot listings that way.
I'm supposed to do the index and then position.
Oh, that's what she was saying earlier.
Yeah, but
There is a comma 1.
That didn't seem to work.
Slice.
Yeah.
That didn't seem to work, though, so I don't know. That's how we seem to do it.
Replace this one with the end.
I was.
But I couldn't get it to do it.
Sorry, very focused, I
He
see.
was splicing a different.
I know, I feel bad showing you this.
It's
What?
my bad.
Oh.
different
We're just all mentally.
I haven't had enough.
Alright, so if there's a match, we're going to keep this index because we want to reset this to the last one. So this is now at the last one, and then we can just trim the length. So this dot listings dot length.
Oh, hold on, you just took it out. You just took out the.
Oh, why did I do that?
It was your computer, not you.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You
There we
don't
go.
need TIF
So we'll
anymore, right?
What?
You don't even need T anymore.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just put it at the end and then trim the length. That'll work. Get rid of these, and now it should work. So if we find the match, we just shove the thing at the end and cut it off. But what about the thing that was at the end? We want to move that to where it is. That's the only problem. Is it not?
Doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, because
We're just gonna sort it. Bye.
Yeah, but we just got rid of something.
yeah,
That was at the
can't
end.
Replaced it. You just
Yeah, we replaced the one at the end. So that's why I was doing a temp. Let temp equal this dot listings at this dot listings dot length. -1. So save the last one, and then set this to the last one, and then this dot listings at I.
So now, so this that listens to I is equal to the last one. So then you just have the last one in there twice. The one that's equal is already removed, and now you just have to remove the last one.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's true. Let's just see if it
I guess
works.
if you're trying to preserve like the order that they're displayed on the page.
Yeah, if that, then you would want
I
to
know
move
this
stuff
sounds
around.
crazy, but if that doesn't work, then well, actually, let's see.
We can go back to this place if it doesn't work. All right, so let's pick one.
I'm just looking at all the
You look at the
numbers.
slices.
Yeah.
It's deleting stuff.
Stuff.
Whoa. What happened? Hold on, let's refresh a minute. I'm confused. Okay, we deleted something. I don't know if it changed because they're all kind of named the same. Why do we have all hellos now? Let's pick like a random one. It's not all hello. Never mind. So I can't tell. Let's try to just delete the top ones.
Well, the way I started trying to figure out which one was deleting, I did test 1 through 10, and then I was clicking on the last one, seeing if it actually did it.
Yeah, something weird is happening. So if I keep deleting, eventually like narrows our list down. Like it's definitely deleting things right now.
Yeah, but it's just pulling from whatever's the last one and putting it up there.
I know. So I kind of want to delete a lot of these anyways, so that's fine. Let's just keep spamming it. See, it looks like we have no listings, but if I refresh, we have a lot. So something weird's happening. Let's try that splice. Let's go back to splice.
Is it removing it from the database then, if we still have all this?
It is. I can tell because this scroll bar is larger than it was before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we did have, hold on. So,
So we still need to find it by its index.
Yeah.
So we need to do this. Give me 1 sec, and then we'll do that. Just listings length. Right. So we'll find the thing by its index if there's a match. So we'll bring back that let index. This is almost like a selection sort kind of. If this dot listings I.id is equal to data ID. All right. If we found the match, then just store that index. That's all we care about. Index is I. Now we can splice.
Okay.
All right. So this dot listings equals this dot listings dot splice. Right, and then it should be
index,
comma 1.
Yeah.
So like this, right? If index is greater than -1, array dot splice index and then 1. Oh, so you don't have to reset the whole thing like this. It just does it in place, so I don't have to just set it. I guess I could just do that instead of storing it.
Yeah.
Let's try it. Now it should work. I really hope. All right, let's pick like this one here. Delete. It's doing something. You can tell if you look at the scroll bar.
Wait.
Refresh. It's definitely working. All right, so if we have 1, let's delete it. It works. All right, good.
See the back end?
So that was my issue. I
Huh?
said I wasn't-
What did you do on the back end to get that to work?
Oh, the back end was never a problem. It was just getting it to remove from what we're actually seeing on the front end. Yeah. So that's great. That works. Let's make another unicycle because we need some stuff in here to test. It's orange. Price $100.
What?
Create listing. Hello. What? Okay, now our create's broken. For some reason. Why?
Unless it's still taking them off your.
I'm confused. Create listing. Create listing. It's getting larger. You can see this. But it's like resetting things. You can see it's making all these live, but they're all blank. Why is that?
Why is it making so many?
Because I spammed it.
What I'm noticing is when you put the URL, it's supposed to be showing the picture. It doesn't even show that.
It's not even filling in all this stuff. That's
Yeah,
the weird
but
part.
let alone when you put it on the image, you see that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying
well, that
it is
gives
updating
them-
then.
Yeah, because that's still done.
Title. unicycle.
No, but it,
Why does our create not work? I mean, you can see it's saving to the database. If I refresh, that'll still stay there. But why is it?
tied to
Oh, it's not. Sorry?
Is it tied to any emitter? That
No.
maybe-
I don't think so. I think here's the blank listing. When someone clicks create, this dot listing is not push, but it calls this. So it calls create on the back end, passes the listing, and gives us data back. Why don't we do this? Console log what we're getting back. Data.
Well, didn't we say, aren't we only admitting on delete right now? We're not admitting on create?
No,
But we don't need to.
We didn't need to because we
Oh, because it's a child.
Yeah, we're already in the component that has those listings. So once we get it back, we're just pushing right to it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. All right. So why is this happening? Let's try this. Just spam for a second. Create this thing. Oh, we're not logged in. That shouldn't be letting us create stuff. Why are we? How are we even allowed to be on the page then? Well, that makes a lot of sense.
How did we get logged out?
I don't know. But that was weird because it was like appending to the page even though there was issues. So to fix that, we could just check for the data.errors thing we made and then, yeah, fix that. So let's at least have a picture. Now we're good. So you can see that gets created and shown right away. It's on our back end and all of that. And we can delete this again if we want. And I refresh the page altogether and now there's nothing, which is good. So we'll keep a unicycle on here just for
So,
having something.
that's a unicycle.
Yeah. All right, so everything's good on this page. We can finally move away from this page and work with the not as difficult page, except for the search. All right, so we're going to end up making like the same kind of component as this update component. It's going to have literally the same logic, except we're going to have one if. It's going to be like, hey, if this belongs to you, you should be able to delete it, so we'll show this button. Otherwise, we're going to let you contact them and just show an alert. All right, so that page won't take very long. All right, because that's just a get all from our backend. All right, so that's great. Let's move to doing that. Might be able to finish this by noon, I hope. All right, so let's close all of this. We only have one listing, so let's just make a couple more before we do that. Why didn't I just click this? All right, let's create some BMX bikes.
Oh, that big real blue one.
This
Yeah.
is great. All right, so let's create another one. Let me refresh.
Big
All right.
old wheels.
All right, and this is going to be
Over 9,000.
yeah. And we'll create this listing. All right, so there's Cameron's dream bike. That's great. Cool.
It's the little thing.
Let's find like one more. What do you guys want to sell in this marketplace anyway?
Dirt bikes.
Dirt bikes, yeah. Cool.
Let's go with that white Husqvarna.
That right there.
Oh, this one?
It's all
Yeah.
about the
Great.
gold. Look at that gold.
This?
Right
No, but I have one of the white Husqvarnas for sale.
Oh, you actually have one?
Yeah, I have 8 dirt bikes.
You have 8 dirt bikes?
Yeah, use
Can I
those
buy one?
professionally.
Oh, you know the other thing that we should fix, but it's not that big of a problem, is clearing out this form after you submit it, which is very easy to do. It's just, I'm going to let you guys figure that out. It's actually really easy. Yeah, you just
That's
reset
it.
the object. All right, so let's just say Cam's dirt bike. I don't know why, this all is for some reason related to Cameron, but
It's alright.
it's fast.
Awesome. It's fast, yeah. Price is currently $8,500.
Okay. Location,
Florida.
Florida. Flow
Rider.
Yeah, sure, why not? All right, so we got 3 now. That's cool. That's good. That's enough to kind of just to display them all here. So no matter who you are, we're going to show you all listings when you hit this page once you log in. All right, so to do that, to start with this page, there is a search. We'll get to that very last because it's not that important.
That will be using pipes for.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to use a pipe. We'll probably do that after lunch because that's going to take a minute or two. So listings component, have we done this one yet? No. This will be for showing all listings, the page that you're currently on. We are loading this, right? Listings works. Yeah, so we're in the right one. What'd you say?
Just a process.
Yeah, so let's grab our listing service. Yes, from somewhere. It's over here somewhere. Goodness. So that should work. Listing service, and then of course the same thing. Import this listing service here, or dependency inject. Right. So when this component initializes, that'd be a good place to kind of make our query. So let's do that right here. We say when you initialize, let's have a place to also store these listings. Right. Let's just make it any, and then actually talk to our service here. So when it loads, we want to get all the listings. So we'll say listing service. We created this all method for just this reason. We don't pass in anything except for a callback, which is going to give us back data or all listings, and we just assign them. Listings equals data, and that's it. So now we have all listings on this one component. All right, and then we can create a listing component, right? That listing singular component is going to just display all these ones here. So we'll format that. Let's make this a one-liner. In fact, you can make this even not have curly braces. Yeah, like this. You don't have to be anal about it. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Now it's looks like that. That should work. So we get all listings. Now we can just loop them on the page and create all of these singular listing components. So it's going to look very similar to what we just did. And we're going to have a for loop that just iterates these and creates a listing component for each. So in this, let's go ahead and go to the HTML. We don't need a form or anything here. All we're going to do right away is just say app-listing. We want to create these, right? We want to create these kind of components that don't exist yet. We're going to stub it in and do an ng for every one of these, right? For all of the listings that we've found or have. So this is all listings, not just the ones that you created, because we're doing that top page now, this page. So then we're creating each one of these boxes right now, kind of. All right, do we need an input here? We do. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to pass along the same exact thing. We're probably going to also call this listing. So this will be listing here, and then we want to pass along to each one of these app listings this listing, the current listing that we're looking at in the loop. Gotta spell that right. All right, so that's it. That's all that's going in this component. Is just the loops to create these, right?
That last listing
This one?
part, like that whole with the orange part.
Oh, this orange part. Okay, so it'd be better if I just let's rename these two so you can see. Let's just say a listing. All right, so this is just the name of the variable. So this is the value of each listing. All right, but this orange one, this has to be an input. It has to be a property that exists on each app listing. All right, so now once we start messing with this component, you're going to see we create this. The first thing I'm going to do actually right now is create this as an input on this component. All right, so here's what it looks like. So we'll close this HTML. We're going to go create this right now, this input on app listing. So let's go to, where is it?
It's basically just passing information to that.
That's it. That's all it does. Yep. So now we're in the listing component that we're creating millions of instances of per however many we have, right? This is, oops, not private. This is going to be an add input right here. So this is where it's pulling that orange text from right here, whatever I call this. So this has to be identical to whatever you put in the orange brackets, right? So there's input listing, and we'll just import all this stuff we need. We're going to need our service at some point, probably. Listing service, there's that, and we have this. And then I'll just import this here too. So import listing service. right, so now in this we can display all the stuff and format these particular components, because the last ones we did were literally just like this, except they had a form. This time we're going to just not have a form and just show their content, right? So it's literally the same. We made these ones down here. We did the exact same process for these, except it was a form. Now we're doing the same thing up here. We're just going to show this data, not let people change it. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. All right, so that's all we need to do. And let's see. We created that, so it should load fine, actually. I'm going to just leave this listing works here so we can see that we're looping all of these and it loads fine. So let's refresh, and now this page should actually do something once I import input. So let's do that. Import input. Refresh. All right, so now this is the page where we're going to create what this text actually does now. Right, so before in my listings we had, each one of these. We could change this. Right, so now let's just actually show that stuff. All right, so we're getting really close to being done, except for the search that's going to belong in our listings component. You'll see how that works later. All right, so let's go ahead and stub in like this HTML. So it looks like this. And then you'll see how these conditionals are going to work too, for one for showing this and one for showing this. It's like just an if check. Yeah, just an ngIf. So let's make this look like something. Let's have an image tag, and it's going to be source of just listing.source, and that's it. Give it a width so it doesn't take up the whole page. Sorry? Oh yeah, I put AMG there. Let's wrap this whole thing in a div too, because it's going to look bad. And we can just kind of style this. We'll just call it listing, a class of listing. Alright, so now we can kind of target this. You'll see why I did that in a sec, once we're done with this. Alright, so let's show its title, description, price, and location. So title looks like an H1. So listing.title. Price was also a huge H1. Okay, with a $sign in front of it. Let's do location as a P tag. Right? Yeah. It's not going to look great, but we'll make it look at least kind of similar to what it looks like. Location, and then also just the description. Let's kind of move these around. So this will be description up here. All right, so there's all that stuff. We're not like, making a form or anything. This is just showing all the data that belongs to each one. All right, so let's just see what it looks like for a second. Oh, thank you. That would have broken right away. All right, so refresh. There you go. So our image tags don't work. That one does. Okay. All right, so you can see we're displaying all this stuff. We're getting closer to kind of completing this, and it looks kind of almost like a website. It's just very bland. But it's functional, mostly. All right, so let's do some line breaks and things like that. Let's do a horizontal roll, actually. All right, now I'm going to go into the CSS just for a second. I don't like CSS, but we're going to do it. Dot listing, because it really looks bad. All right, let's make all the background colors for each listing. That's why I encapsulated this in a div, so you can see it stretch across and kind of look like something. Maybe we can even give these a height of 8 vertical height, for example. We'll give it a width of 100%. Whoa. 100% of your page height. All right, so refresh. God, that looks terrible. What have I done?
I think you need to adjust the vertical height for the pictures, or set a picture.
Or just don't have a vertical height, and that'll fix it.
That too.
There you go. So that's pretty chunky. If there is an image in there, it's going to be pretty massive, but I just wanted it so that each thing you can tell there's space between it and it looks like something. What do you say?
Display flex.
Oh, does that work?
It's gonna put them on. Okay.
Well, we're going to have to do that in why would we display flex?
This is a red herring.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's right. Yeah, I remember doing that in the last one too. There, now it'll push it over. Oh God!
Undo. Control Z. Control Z.
This is beautiful. This is my dream site. That's what I've always wanted in my website. right, well,
is good.
Oh, it's a nice
Just 'cause it's-
yeah. Let's have like one more horizontal rule because I'm a lazy CSSer. I use HRs for my CSS. Okay, cool. So we can clearly see each listing, displayed that way. All right, so let's work with the logic here and figure out how to make it so it shows delete if you own the listing, and that should be pretty easy. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of, if you remember, local storage that we talked about super briefly yesterday. What we're going to do is pull out your ID, your session ID from our backend that we got when you logged in or registered, compare that with each listings.id, and that's it. So to do that, what are we going to do? We're going to do, why don't we do this? For each listing component, why don't we just do this here? Oh, that might be a bad idea. That's fine. We're going to do this, private user any. So this is going to be the person who's logged in. It's just going to be your ID. In fact, we can just call it ID. All right, when this thing loads, when each one of these loads in the for loop, this is probably a bad place to do it. I'm going to do it for a second and see if it works. All we're going to do is use local storage. Why is nothing autocomplete today? This is weird. All right, what we're going to do is get item, right? Because we used UID in here. This is what we were using for cookies, just to get your ID out. So if this exists, then that's good. We're going to store it inside of this field. If it doesn't, then we're going to be like, well, you don't own any of these, so maybe we should just kick you off. We could do that. So if this is okay, and if you remember yesterday, we had a problem where we were trying to, compare it with undefined, but it wasn't working, so we had to compare it with the string of undefined, which is just weirdness. It's just weird. All right, so if it's undefined, that's a problem, but we'll just leave it there for a minute and then take you away from the page if that happens later. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, give us this ID for use on our page, just for ease of use. So let's just call it UID. UID. All right, now we're just going to set this to get item UID. All right, so we're just storing. All we care about is just shoving this on the page so we can compare it against all the other listings. Okay, so let's go into the HTML for listing component for the component we're in. All right, so for each one, we're just looking for your ID. All right, so now over here, we can say only show us a form if we have that UID and it matches this listings.id. All right, so then let's just shove a form in here. And we can create eventually a function called delete inside of the component. All right, so let's call this delete. We already know what we're, sorry?
Can we call it destroy before?
Yeah, it's called destroy. Let's make this a submit button, and that's it. And we'll give it a value of destroy. Right, but you shouldn't be able to see this if you didn't create it, because that would be bad. All right, so all we have to do is say, put an if statement right here, and do our comparison. So ngIf, we're going to do this. If this listings ID, right, if the creator of this is equal to UID, if these match, then you can delete it. And that's all we need. All right, so it's not going to show this form at all. It's going to just do this if you don't have it. So that should work. So we'll find out. This method doesn't exist yet, so it's not going to do anything, but at least we'll be able to see the buttons. Or not. Okay, well then. Were you going to say something?
No, I was going to check because we had an issue earlier whether we're logged in or not, so I was going to
Oh, yeah.
see. Yeah.
Good point. Let's log out and then relog back in. There's Cameron. So it should actually be showing it for all of these. We should be able to delete all of them because Cameron created them all. Okay, well, that's weird. Something's not working, so let's go ahead and check if this is actually running. I'm going to do this. We're going to log whatever your ID is, and if it even exists. So let me just grab this thing and just paste it in here. Because it should be matching. Alright, so we have Cameron's ID. It's right here. And you can see it's doing it 7 times because there's 7 items, which is bad, but we're going to just do it for a second. So if we have this, this is his ID. Oh, you know what? I know why it didn't work. I'm stupid. right, so what we're doing wrong is this. We need to say listings dot, yeah, dot user. So look at the listings user, not the listing ID. That's all it was. So we were doing everything fine. We were just doing it wrong. So we wanted to look at the listings user ID, not just the listing ID. So do those foreign keys match? And still didn't work. Oh, yeah, it does. So yeah, so as you can see,
Why the other?
I don't know.
The
So-
other ones were already in the database.
Yeah, these are ones from Yev.
Yev's house.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's actually working. You can only delete things that belong to you. That's cool. So that works, all right? Now let's figure out how contact works. You want to know how easy that one is? Grab this, paste it, make this a not symbol, and you're done. Contact. When you click this, we're not going to call a destroy method, we're going to call it contact. So there's no else's when you use ngIf. You can just negate whatever the conditional is. So we're doing the exact opposite, if you were curious. Right, so we're saying if your ID is not a match, well, you can't delete it because it's not yours, so we're going to let you contact this person. So we're just negating that conditional, right? All right, but in these cases, all we have to do now is just create a destroy and contact function, and we're done. Aside from the search, which we'll do around 1 or 2. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'll wait for your picture. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and see if that worked really quick before we make those methods, and then we will wrap it up. So you can see I have contact, 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 and Cameron created these 2 or 3. So that works. Pretty much done. So, this is going to be weird. Contact, how are we going to do this? All right, so, well, we know we need to create destroy, and we know we need to create contact. So destroy, we're going to have to do the same thing we did before with an output, send it to our parent, and then kind of delete it from the array. But for contact, let's just get this one out of the way because it's super easy. All right, so for contact, when you click that, all we're going to do is an alert. That's actually what they tell you to do here. They were like, just show an alert. It's fine. Do an alert and shows their name and email. Do we have name? All right, so what we're going to do is, let's just make a string. We'll just say name, colon, plus, and I'll just line break this so it doesn't hurt our eyeballs. And we'll just do, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it should be like this. And then I'm going to line break this, and we're going to do another plus. And then now we're going to do this. Email. All right, so I'm just kind of formatting what this looks like. So we're grabbing the listings user, and then on that user, we're grabbing their first name. Then I'm going to line break, so it looks like someone pressed enter. Then we're going to do this. This.listing.user.email. And that's it. So that should work, hopefully. So refresh and hit contact. Yev is undefined, but he has an email, so that's great. Let's click on Cameron to see if that worked.
So that you can't
Destroy it.
Yeah.
Crap.
Log into
Yeah.
somebody else.
Let's make a new person. Anybody?
Does anyone?
George. There you go. I forget your last name. Such a straightforward name. How do you forget that? There is. There's an S.
Yeah.
Georges at gmail.com. You'll just have test 1, 2, 3, 4. We still didn't do the password comparison, but I think you guys are pretty capable of that at this point. For login registration, it's not even required on the exam, so it was kind of a waste of time yesterday, but we did it anyways.
Not a waste of time in the long run.
Not in the long run, right. Yeah, so if you want to know more about like cookies, local storage, session storage, just watch this again. Because we talked about it kind of a lot. And we did a recap before we started. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can contact Cameron on one of these. There you go. Name Cameron. I know why the other ones were undefined. The other ones were undefined because last time I did this assignment, my back-end user model didn't have a first or last property. It was just email password. All right, so that's cool. And then if you want delete to work, let's just make that work, and then we will wrap it up. We have about 9 minutes to make it work. All right, so it's going to be the same thing. We're going to do this. This dot listing service destroy. We probably made it take the entire listing, which we do have. We have it right here. So let's just shove that whole thing in there, and then it'll figure it out in the service, because we made it do that. All right, so same thing. We're going to use an output, send it up to the parent, and be like, go remove it from your listing so we don't see it anymore. All right, so this is going to be data, and then this is where we're going to have an emitter output this whole thing.
We need to input at the top.
Yeah. So we need input, we need output, and event emitter. Cool. All right, so we'll do at output, call this, and we can call this emitter too, why not? You could call this like listing emitter or whatever, because you might have like 2 or 3 of these things in a component. I hope you don't, but that might happen. Create one of these. Then when you click delete, same exact thing. We're going to say on this emitter that you created, we created emit this listing that someone deleted after we get it back from the database. That's what we're doing there. All right, so that's it. We're done with this component. It is finished. Now, in our parent, do the same exact thing. So listings holds listing components, right? So let's do this here in the HTML. All right, so this is going to look terrible again, like our other one did. And right here, we need to specify the name of our emitter that exists on each app listing. Right, so this is emitter here. Now we can call functions that exist in listings component TS, not app listing. So in the parent component, right? So now in this component, we can just call a method that we create called whatever we want. Destroy makes sense, and it's going to give us the listing that we deleted. Right, so this will be data or listing.
Should you name an event of your own?
That's going to be right here. Yeah, this is going to be delete or destroy. So we want to call destroy, the thing we just put in there. And this is where you put $events. Yeah, so this is the listing we deleted from each app listing. So it sends up to us, it says on this emitter, call destroy that exists way over here and give us that listing here. Right now we can do a loop and delete it from this listing so we don't see it. So let's just copy what we had before it. This is the same exact code. That was in like user new listing. Yeah, we called it on delete there, but same thing. This is going to work exactly the same, so it should be fine. We'll grab what we had there, and then we can like look at it, make sure it doesn't break. All right, so destroy and then data. We're looking through listings. These are still listings, so the naming actually worked out perfect. If it's a match, if the one we're looking at in the loop is equal to the one that someone deleted, then grab the index of that, and that's it. Then splice out that index of the one we found. Should work. Let's test. This might break. There's a lot going on there. All right, so let's look for delete here.
You're still not good.
Let's go be Cameron for the day. Let's take on a new persona. We'll be the Cam. We're gonna delete your dirt bike because it's too expensive. lower the price. I can barely buy that right now. All right, destroy. That's gone. It removed on the front end. So we've done. Let's just double check. Did we do everything? We did login reg. Did we do bike of the day?
No.
We got to do that. That one's actually pretty fun.
That's a random.
It's really easy.
Quick question for you. So we wrote destroy twice. Once from the total listings, and
Yeah.
another time from this.
Because you have one destroy method in each component.
There's 2 separate components.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they can't reference something.
correct. So
in another.
Because they're nested with them. Yeah. Nested.
hour 9 minutes. All right, I'm gonna stop this here, and when we get back, if you guys are still interested, if you want to pick this up at like 2 or 1 or 2, whatever you want, it's only gonna take like an extra half an hour. We're gonna do the search. You'll see how you can make that update live. It doesn't query your database for every keystroke. It's just gonna cache the results and then like splice stuff out of the array, and that's it. So it doesn't touch your backend, which makes it super efficient. And then after that, there was one more thing, the bike of the day, and that's it. So it'll be like maybe half an hour if you want to see that around 1ish.